Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome if you're new. Thank you for taking time out of your day to check the video out. We have more PlayStation news, rumors, and leaks to go over and cover today. We're starting here with a new leak for PlayStation Plus Extra and Premium. Recently, we heard from Dia Labs that Silent Hill 2 Remake would be making its way to PS Plus Extra. Now we have more games to add to that list. They say here that on October 21st, you're going to be getting Silent Hill 2 Remake, Until Dawn Remake, As Dusk Falls, and V Rising. And for PlayStation Plus Premium, you're going to be getting Tekken 3 and Tomb Raider Anniversary for the classics. So, yes, this comes from a very reliable source. Dia Labs has been on point numerous times with these leaks, so I imagine this is something that's going to be announced very soon. I will say that's a pretty strong lineup, certainly a good one for October, specifically looking at Silent Hill 2 Remake and Until Dawn. I highly recommend giving those games a shot. Moving on from that, though, we have another significant PlayStation 6 report to go over coming from Push Square. The title reads, PS6 manufacturing scheduled to get underway in early 2027. Sony will begin manufacturing PS6 in early 2027 ahead of a launch later in the year. That's according to hardware leaker Moore's Law is Dead, who claims to have seen documents confirming exactly when the console will hit the production line. While the YouTuber didn't publicly publish those papers for obvious reasons, he has accurately leaked information about past PlayStation hardware plans, including, most recently, the PS5 Pro. Fellow hardware leaker Kepler L2 recently reported that Sony's plan is to release the PS6 in 2027, so we now have multiple sources basically confirming that this console is set to release in 2027. But Moore's Law is Dead says, quote, I literally have documents showing they're manufacturing these things in the middle or even early 2027. That's exactly when they will manufacture the PS6. They've been planning this as early as 2 years ago. So I wanted to be sure to cover this because we are getting further reiteration that this is not going to be a 2028 or 2029 console launch. Now, obviously, it's still a little while from now, so things and plans could change, but every single insider who has given us information about Sony's plans for the PlayStation 6, they've all said the same thing. 2027 is the year the console will launch. Again, I will reiterate, we are most likely looking at a November 2027 launch. I understand that recently Mark Cerny said in a few years' time. People took that to mean 2028, maybe even 2029. I understand that, but I think people are reading into what Mark Cerny said a little too much there. And truthfully, Mark Cerny could be wording it that way because, yeah, plans could change. Maybe as of right now, the plan is we are going to manufacture these consoles in early 2027, but maybe circumstances will change by the time we get to that point and it will be pushed back by a year or so. These things are possible, but I'm just letting everybody know now that apparently internally at Sony, the plan is 2027 release. But continuing to talk about what Moore's Law is Dead had to say, he did have something interesting to say about the next Xbox hardware as well. This is being reported by Power Up Gaming. They say in a new video uploaded to their YouTube channel, Moore's Law is Dead goes into detail about the insider information he's obtained regarding the new Xbox and PlayStation consoles. One section of the video is dedicated to sharing some insight into how AMD's collaborations with teams from both Sony and Microsoft has progressed so far, with a particular focus on the scathing sentiments from the host's AMD sources regarding the team from Microsoft. The tensions stem from a highly stressful working relationship where AMD sources expressed that they felt Microsoft expects them to, quote, do all the work. One source at AMD, according to the host, described the relationship as like the president in V for Vendetta on a giant screen screaming at them to get something done. The content creator says that according to their internal AMD sources, the professional perception is that Microsoft's engineers are viewed as, quote, the people that didn't get hired by NVIDIA, end quote. One stunning unfiltered quote reported heard by the host claimed that when Microsoft asked for their opinions from Microsoft engineers, one individual at AMD responded, quote, oh, I wasn't aware Microsoft had engineers, end quote. This stands in stark contrast to AMD's reportedly smooth partnership with Sony. In the video, the host explains that AMD's engineers, quote, like working with Sony engineers. They get lunch together and they help solve problems together, end quote. So this is very interesting information to be hearing from Moore's Law is Dead from behind the scenes at AMD, and considering how good Moore's Law is Dead sources are regarding what's going on at AMD, and specifically with these consoles, this doesn't sound good. It just kind of adds to, I think, a lot of the negativity we've been hearing about the Microsoft gaming side of things. But there you go. I figured I would report it to you guys. You can make of it what you will. Moving on from that, though, we have some good news for Ghost of Yotei. This is being reported by Push Square. It says Ghost of Yotei, the latest historical sandbox from Sucker Punch, is crushing it, according to sales data emerging out of Europe, which compiles both physical and digital data. The sequel is selling in line with its predecessor, Ghost of Tsushima, which launched to a much more mature PS4 install base during the height of the pandemic. It's actually Sony's biggest new PS5 release since Marvel's Spider-Man 2, although cynics may argue that there hasn't really been much competition. Ultimately, it means it's outperforming the likes of Stellar Blade, Rise of the Ronin, and even Helldivers 2, although we are just specifically looking at launch week sales here. The latter obviously went on to become a phenomenon across the PS5 and PC. Despite all this success, Ghost of Yotei could not overtake EA Sports FC 26, which naturally topped the GSD European sales charts for the week ending October 5th. So yeah, this was something that was worth mentioning because we have yet to get official sales numbers for Ghost of Yotei, but so far I think we got some data from the UK and now we're getting data from Europe, and generally speaking, it sounds like at the very least it's pacing with Ghost of Tsushima, which is good because if you look at the overall sales trajectory of Ghost of Tsushima, that game went on to sell a total of 13 million over, the course of like 5 years. So obviously Yotei has a ways to go, but Ghost of Tsushima was a major success story and did very well sales-wise. So Yotei seems to be following in those footsteps. But continuing to talk about Sucker Punch, we have another report here from WCCF Tech. It says in a post-mortem Ghost of Yotei interview with VGC, Sucker Punch studio head and co-founder Brian Fleming suggested that the studio will keep focusing on one game project at a time instead of attempting to juggle more than one. Quote, "The truth is that whatever we do next, whether it's continuing Ghost or going back to Sly, the decision is really more limited by, again, our cherishing of focus and time to iterate, which means that we really can only do one thing at a time. If we were good at juggling 4 projects, yeah, we'd have a remaster, and let's go do one of those, and do some fan requests. That would be really popular, but we only get to do one thing. So it kind of has to be our best idea, right? And that's really clarifying. It's not like there aren't 15 good ideas, but you only get to do one. And by the way, you only get to do one about every 5 years. So that choice is really important," end quote. Interestingly, Brian Fleming also hinted that Sucker Punch has to deal with internal pressures from employees as well as external pressures from fans when it comes to potentially diversifying its output. Quote, "At 30 years, we now have employees who are kids of former employees. We have employees who weren't born when the studio was founded. And you also have had enough changes from Sly to Infamous to Ghost that part of those changes, when they happen, is that it means not just you're walking away from Tsushima, and not just that you're walking away from the actors in Tsushima, but you're walking away from employees who've been a part of the studio for the last decade because they don't want to do a game set in a historical setting," end quote. So yeah, I just wanted to let you guys know about this because I think it's interesting insight into maybe what we can expect next from Sucker Punch. At the very least, they're making it abundantly clear they're only going to work on one project. I have no problem with this. It's true, it takes like 5, sometimes even 6 or 7 years, depending on how the development cycle goes, to get a AAA game out the door these days, like a really big AAA game like Ghost of Yotei. And it makes complete sense that they really want to focus on their best idea and what they think really stands the best chance. I mean, it would be interesting to see Sucker Punch kind of juggle multiple things, but sometimes that can become problematic, right? That can cause a lot of issues in terms of management and production for a studio. But we will see what they end up doing next. You know, I haven't completed Ghost of Yotei yet. I'm still playing it, but I can't help but wonder if their next game will be a third Ghost game, or if they're going to try to do something completely new. Who knows? Maybe Sucker Punch can try to talk to Sony and maybe outsource a remaster for Infamous or Sly Cooper. I think a lot of fans would appreciate that. It's just kind of crazy because we get all these different remasters from Sony, but titles like Infamous and Sly Cooper, these are remasters that I don't know how well they would sell, but they would certainly, I think, satiate a group of fans that really want them. And, you know, it just kind of falls back on that kind of conversation of why doesn't Sony go back and remaster some of the games that people have actually been asking to get the remaster treatment? So who knows what will happen there, but just figured I would let you guys know. Moving on from that, we have another report here regarding Bluepoint, another PlayStation studio that I think fans are very curious to know what's going on, because the last we heard, their game was canceled. They did the Demon's Souls remake that was incredible and, you know, is still an incredible game on the PS5. But since then, they did support work for God of War Ragnarok, then moved on to a God of War live service game for about 2 years before it ended up getting canceled. Well, now we're hearing from a job description what it is they may be working on. So they say here that in a recent Bluepoint Games job listing that was spotted by Tech4Gamers for a senior combat designer, one specific line in the minimum qualifications section stands out among the rest. It asks that applicants have a, quote, solid understanding of combat systems and mechanics for third-person melee action experiences, end quote. In another job listing for a senior level designer, one of the responsibilities says, quote, script and tune key aspects of the content, including events, interactions, encounters, puzzles, and collision, end quote. Both descriptions are pretty vague, but they offer a glimpse of what Bluepoint Games is currently working on. PS5 fans can expect the developer's next game to probably be a third-person melee action game. Whether this is based on an already established PlayStation franchise or a wholly new series entirely is still not known. So I do want to mention the obvious here. People hear this and they go to Bloodborne. I'm going to let you know right now, it's probably not Bloodborne, okay? In fact, it's 99% not Bloodborne. The reason for this is because, well, we heard from other insiders that apparently there's nothing happening with Bloodborne for some reason behind the scenes. It's just not being worked on in any capacity. And on top of that, we read this description, we know that Bluepoint has a history of working with Santa Monica on God of War. Again, they did quite a bit of work on God of War Ragnarok. They were trying to make a God of War live service game, and they did the remaster collection, I believe, for the PS3, if I'm not mistaken, as well. So I'm going to say that they're probably working on something God of War related. And I also want to throw this out here. I know it's, man, this is going to be the worst outcome, but they may have no choice at this point in order to keep their studio healthy. They may just be a support studio now, helping with Santa Monica. We know that Santa Monica has multiple games in development. You got Cory Barlog's new game. There's a new, like, traditional God of War game. And who knows what else they might be working on. So I do just kind of want to put this out here, not to put a damper on it, but to warn people that Bluepoint might not really be doing anything significant. As in, like, we might not be getting another remake from them. We're probably not getting a new IP from them. They might now just be a support studio. I really hope that's not the case, man. But, you know, maybe they'll be doing like a God of War 1 remake or something. I'm not sure. But either way, this is what the job listing is stating. But guys, that's going to do it for the video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it informative. If you did, be sure to leave it a like, subscribe to the channel if you're new, hit the bell notification icon, and feel free to share this video out on top of all that. But until next time, guys, take care.